So first of all, you have a lead generation machine, the machine that drives leads into your business. Then you have a lead conversion machine, a machine that converts leads into customers. Then you have a delivery machine that delivers your product and service to the customer that then produces cash for you. But what really makes the machine go round is if your delivery machine produces happy customers, two things happen. First of all, those customers repeat. So you drive loyalty. You drive retention of your customers if everyone's happy coming out of your delivery machine. But if you can make those customers raving fans, so that's the step above satisfied. That's the step that says, I love this company. Then what happens, a proportion of your customers start to refer you openly to other customers that puts loads of people back into the lead tank. And if you can get that circle really working well, it's kind of like a flywheel. Your machine starts to accelerate and suddenly you get loads of customers coming through the door without you having to do anything. So a lot of clients actually take this idea of creating raving fans as a core business strategy. Their core business strategy is let's create a business machine that produces raving fans. Because if we can do that, we're going to have an awesome business machine. Now, they also understand how to do that, because obviously when I say that, it sounds pretty sensible. Everyone's going to buy that, but how do you do it? So the companies that use it as a strategy really understand what we call the loyalty ladder. So they understand how to create experiences for their clients or customers at every point along the pathway. And this is what we call the loyalty ladder. So at the bottom of it, we have a suspect. A suspect is everybody in our target market that is aware of us. So we need to give those people an experience because we want to move them then into being a prospect. A prospect is someone that's engaged with us. We've had a conversation with them or they've made an inquiry. So that's a prospect now. Now, obviously what we want to do then is move them to the next level, which is a shopper. A shopper is someone that's ordered from you once. Okay, they're not a customer yet because they've only ordered from you once. So now what we want to do is make sure that first time experience that the shopper has with us is so good that they become a customer. And a customer is somebody that orders from us on multiple occasions. So now they're a customer. Now we've got them as a customer, we want to take them to the next level, which is to become a member. So a member is someone that's become part of our community, somebody who feels an affinity for our brand. So obviously some of the big companies have got great membership schemes. So the airline membership scheme, for instance, ties people in. I use Caffè Nero across the road. I have a Caffè Nero loyalty card. I use it all the time. I get benefits. I'm tied in. I'm also, I guess, a member of the Apple community. I've got tons of Apple products and they send me loads of stuff. I'm a member of the Apple community. So now I feel affinity for that brand. I'm not going to move. So therefore, what we're trying to do is make our customers members. The next stage is to make them an advocate. So an advocate is that they like us so much that when asked, they will refer us to somebody else when asked. But the real gold for us guys, the real gold is to create that advocate into a raving fan. So a raving fan of a customer or of a business is someone who goes out and tells stories about you. They're basically a marketing machine for you. They tell all their friends about you. And that's what we want. And any companies that have loyalty as a core strategy, what they're trying to do very deliberately is to see how much of their customer base they can make into raving fans. Because if they can make more and more customers into raving fans every month, their flywheel keeps going round and round and round and round and round and round and round. Now, obviously, if you see people going up this ladder, what happens? Their trust starts low and their trust goes up and up and up as we go up the ladder. Their speed of transacting with us goes up. So people are raving fans that the sales cycle's like super short. Yeah, they just buy automatically from us. So the cash flow is really, really fast. And also because they're raving fans of us, I'm not saying we can charge any price we want, but we can certainly command a high margin. So our raving fans buy from us super fast and we can get great margins off them because their loyalty is really strong. So really that's what the strategy is all about. Now, on top of this, they're always also trying to make it systematic because you know what? In the loyalty game, consistency is king. So for instance, if you've got a favorite restaurant, you might go there once, it's great. You might go there a second time, it's great. So you're on the verge of recommending it to your friends. But if you go there for a third time and it ain't so good, then you're not going to recommend it to somebody else because you've lost a little bit of trust. So therefore, consistency is really key. So we have to make this super systematic because just doing it occasionally doesn't work. So we have to build a system behind all of this stuff. McDonald's, for instance, in the restaurant business, okay, it's not the most wonderful food, but they have an army of raving fans because every time you go to McDonald's, you know exactly what you're going to get, and that's what you get. So that strategy has worked really well for them. Now, the reason this is quite complicated, though, for us as business owners, because as business owners, we're used to dealing with tangible things. We're used to dealing with marketing, with products, with money. Like those things are tangible. But building a loyalty strategy, a raving fan strategy, is about dealing with something different. It's about dealing with creating emotions. Because you know what? To become a raving fan is about a feeling. It's about the way customers feel about your business. And moreover, we have to provide them with stories to tell, which are exceptional stories about our business. Because, you know, it's the stories they tell their friends that actually gets us all of that incremental business. So it's about us creating 1,000 emotions for people, millions of emotions for people, millions of positive emotions for people to get them into that raving fan strategy. And all companies that do this really well concentrate on two things. First of all, they build systems because they understand that it's about consistency. So they understand their customer journey, all of the touch points where a customer interacts with them. And they design every part of that customer journey to delight the customer. So it's not done by accident. It's not done by human effort. It's a system that does that. And the second bit they understand is that it has to be a deep-rooted culture in their company. They know that every team member that they employ genuinely prioritizes customer loyalty as the most important part of their job. Because you can't just create a layer on the outside. It has to be real. So people who drive a customer loyalty strategy understand these two things. So let's start with talking about systems. And let me give you a few examples of customer loyalty systems that have worked for other people. So let's take Apple to start with. So they totally broke through in the computer market to start with. And their strategy was very much a loyalty and experience-based strategy. They wanted to create operating systems and machines which were intuitive and easy and a pleasure to use. But they also went one step further. They created the Apple Shop. And they created the Apple Store so that they could give customers a real experience. Now, nobody up to then in the computer world had ever felt a need to create stores with experience like this. Apple were the first one. and their stores are amazing. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like a candy shop to me anyway. There's so many beautiful gifts, devices in there. The people are amazing. The experience is great. I always come out spending a lot more than I think I'm going to, and it's great fun. They've created an experience, and that has been designed. It wasn't by accident. Nothing in Apple's journey is left to chance. It's designed and systemized. Amazon is the same. Their core strategy was experience-based. Not only did they say, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if people could just go online, order anything they wanted, pretty much, anywhere in the world, and have it delivered anywhere in the world, and if it wasn't right, just send it back. What a great experience. But then they said, well, actually, why don't we go one step further and make people members, and introduced Amazon Prime, and said, well, look, actually, if you become a member of our club, then you can have what you want tomorrow. Pure bloody genius. Not only do people pay them every month, but people feel like members of the Amazon community as well. So incredible strategy. Now, we've got a lot of clients as well that are following this strategy. Joe, I'm going to ask you to jump in here because you've been doing a lot of work with Luca and the Living Care Company. And I know you've been driving this strategy with Luca.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, it's super powerful, and it doesn't always come about from a strategy. You know, it's something within us as business owners. You know, you care about your business, you care about your service, and you care about your clients. But sometimes we can miss the mark, especially when we're growing and we start employing new people. We can lose that thing that actually attracts people in the first place or retains them. So Luca has an amazing business, and over the last year, he has absolutely transformed it. And I think we've grown it 4 to 5 times within 12 months or maybe 13 months. So it's just going from strength to strength. I mean, the first thing that you can see with the name, it's a living care company, but it never used to be called Living Care. So providing care for the elderly, where people can stay at home, they don't have to go into a care home. And one of the first things that we did was did a rebrand with Luca. It used to be called Helped, and now it's actually called the Living Care Company, because it just wasn't obvious how different he was to the rest of the people that he was competing against. The ethos is that people deserve the best care at home. And how do we get people to see that from the off? So a rebrand and a change of name, a big thing to do, but we did it. The second thing we did was we actually tweaked the business model, because it started off as being an agency. I'm going to match a carer with a client, and then I'm going to step back. And that was proven a little successful. He had a few clients, but as soon as we revamped that and said, this is all about you stepping in and making sure that everyone is happy, everyone is matched perfectly, personal preferences, family are all looked after and considered, we saw the revenue absolutely climb. The last thing I'll just mention on this is that we really took a close look at every single touch point that Luca and his team have with his prospects and clients. I listened to the calls, I listened to the sales calls. We changed the language, we made it more emotional language. We trained on EQ, we changed on call to actions, we changed the look and feel of his communications, and we have seen amazing success. So just a few shares for you guys to take away from today.
Great, thank you, Joe. And I think Jill's on the call as well, from Teachers from Your Home. So this is a business which, again, matches teachers with clients at home that want tutoring. And she's built this incredible platform, and the success of it is based on really understanding every touch point, not only from the client's perspective, but from the teacher's perspective. So from a teacher's perspective, they really like being part of Teachers to Your Home because their experience is really good. It's easy to sign up. I get paid very quickly. I get lots of services. People look after me. And from the client's perspective, again, every touch point has been carefully thought about. So the way you choose a teacher, the way you match as a client, you choose. We don't choose for you. And the way you pay, all of the touch points has been beautifully thought about and designed. And as each touch point gets better, then the sales go up. Now, I don't think Jill's finished on that journey, because you never do, but it's really great to see that every time we improve part of the process, that flywheel goes a little bit faster. But it's a system. It's something that Jill is doing deliberately and carefully, and everything is systemized. And I think probably 6 or 7 months ago, the customer contact, i.e. the humans that were speaking to each customer, was about 85%. Now the system does most of the work. So I think Jill only speaks to about 10 or 15% of customers now. The process is so good that the system itself, just like Amazon, works for the customer. So it's even a more profitable scenario. So the experience is better and it's more profitable because it's systemized.
David, there's a little bit of a mindset thing I just want to throw in here, because how we really should be operating pretty much every day, and Luca has done this and he's a great example, is that, you know, every day we really want to wake up saying, how can I delight my customers? And we want to go to bed saying, how can I delight my customers? And as Warren Buffett says, you want to be dreaming that, how can I delight my customers? Okay, and that's the thing. And I just think there's a very small tweak in, are my customers happy? Are they satisfied? Versus what can I do to delight them? Yeah, one is a very forward-looking, improving mindset, very subtle, but are they happy? Yes or no? Okay, yes, we don't do anything more. What can I do to delight them? We can start coming up with new ideas, focusing on what we could do better, and then implementing it. So to keep pushing forward and keep attracting people, you really want to have that on your mind every day.
Great, fantastic. That's absolutely right. So one more example was Ultra Sports Clinic, another client of ours that we've been working for a while. And I didn't realize the impact of all the things that the guys had been doing over the last couple of years until my son actually went and became a client of theirs last week. And I rung him afterwards and said, hey, George, what was the experience like at Ultra Sports? He said, it was amazing. I loved it. Ah, okay, great. Well, tell me about it. He said, well, first of all, they had a really cool app. So booking in was great. Then when I got there, the waiting room was beautiful. It was like a smart hotel. And there was coffee and there was branded merchandise and the receptionist was super friendly. The treatment itself was fantastic, but also they gave me a little video to download on my phone. So when I got home, I could actually practice some of the exercise I need to get better faster. And also they allowed me to book in for my next appointment really easily. They even sorted out my healthcare for me because I was insured by Bupa, but I'd never used it before. I didn't know how to. So they just volunteered to pick it up and do it for me to make it really easier. And then I thought to myself, absolutely, those are all the touch points the guys have been working on over the last 3 or 4 years. And so, you know, again, it's another example of understanding your customer journey and designing every bit of it. And then you've built raving fans into your system. So those are a few examples of systemization, of understanding the customer journey and systemizing the delivery of it. So if you want to build customer loyalty as part of your strategy, now it doesn't have to be, yeah, because let's say if you're a mining company or something like that, then probably customer loyalty doesn't have to be a key strategy for you. But for most of us, particularly in service-based industries, customer loyalty probably should or could be a strategy for us. And this is how we go about it. First of all, map your customer journey. Put yourself in the shoes of your customers and think about all of the touch points that they go through. And try and identify the critical touch points. So every business has different touch points and different criticalities. So maybe a restaurant business, for instance, the greeting, the first 30 seconds is critical. And also the farewell is critical because customers really remember the start bit and the finish bit of every experience. If you're an online retail business, obviously browsing and finding all the projects you need easily and quickly and them looking great is a critical touch point. And so is opening the box when it arrives at your home. When you open that box and look inside, what feeling do you get? So all of us have critical touch points. So we map our journey meticulously through the eyes of our customers, highlight the critical touch points, and then try and design better experience for our customers on each one of the touch points. Now, we've just given you lots of examples, but we're also asking ourselves when we're doing that piece of design, we're saying, okay, how do I systemize it? Because I don't want something that is totally dependent on a human being if I can avoid it. So we really want to make sure that each one of those design elements of the touch point is systemized as much as possible so that we can guarantee the key thing, which is consistency.
Just jumping in on this one as well, guys, you really also want to be thinking about what is the feeling I want my client to feel when they receive this or when I do this. And it's going to vary depending on your target audience and your client base. Yeah. So for some people, it could be that they want to feel that they're impressed. Okay. But for others, it's going to feel like they're special and important and that you care personally. So you really want to map out what is it, what feeling is it that I need to create, and then work back from there, because it, like I say, it's going to vary across the board.
And the last part is make sure then we listen to our customers and get feedback, because it's only that feedback that'll help us design even better experience and take it to the next level. But also then with the feedback, we might be able to add new parts into the customer journey that really delight people. So listening to customers and getting feedback is critical. So that's how we do it. That's how we execute our strategy. And a lot of companies, have teams that just do this. This is what they do. They map, track, and design the customer journey. One of the ways of doing that is actually something called understanding critical non-essentials. So let me explain what that means, because most of these things, as Joe said, are feelings. It's how do I want my customer to feel? And they're not actually an essential part of what you do. So the word critical non-essentials came from a guy called Paddy Lund, who is a dentist in Australia. And he realized that actually nobody knew the difference between a good dentist and a bad dentist. So he said, well, what can I do outside of dentistry that will make loads of loyal raving fans? So he put an amazing coffee machine in the reception of his dentistry, so that when you walked in, you just smelled of coffee. You smelled the coffee rather than that horrible dental smell that you smell. He created dental buns, which helped clean your teeth but taste amazing, and you sat and ate them in your personalized waiting room. So he built loads of little things that made his experience unique. After a year of doing that, he was so busy that he created another scenario, which is to be a customer of ours, you could only become a customer by referral. So if you wanted to join the membership of his dentistry, it can only be from referral from an existing client, again, which added another level of experience to it. So if you think about these things, nothing to do with dentistry, but they're critical to creating raving fans. So they're critical non-essentials. So let me give you a few examples of companies that have used this strategy very well. So Anne Hames Interiors, my wife's business. I listen to her customers' stories. And when they actually install the curtains and the furniture into someone's house, they always do so and make sure the customer's not there. And they invite the customer back a little later on in the day. But they don't just install the furniture, they set the room. So they order flowers and put flowers around the room. They put scented candles around the room. They put a bowl of fruit, if necessary, on the table. They do everything possible to make the whole house, and particularly the room they just decorated, feel like it's an amazing place, like it's an upmarket hotel. So when the client returns in the evening, the place just feels amazing. Now, she doesn't have to do that to get paid. She doesn't have to do that to get a satisfied customer, but it's a critical thing to do to get a raving fan. And that's why the vast majority of her business growth has been driven by raving fans who just refer her to other people. And there's lots of other businesses who have critical non-essential strategies, like Metro Bank, for instance. If you've been into Metro Bank, it doesn't feel like a normal bank. It's beautifully designed, and it has a lot of little features to entertain you, such as it has a money machine for the kids to play in, to put all their change in, and it makes lots of noises and entertains kids. It's like a big fruit machine. And they have an area for dogs with dog biscuits and a bowl of water for the dog. So it feels like something that is a great experience to go to the bank. Now, that's a pretty rare thing, a great experience going to a bank. And I'm a cyclist, and I order stuff from a company called Wiggle, and they send it in a box. And when you open the box has got what you want in it, but it's also got a load of sweets in it, Haribo's, which I'm particularly fond of. And again, they don't have to do that. It's not essential to what they do, but it's critical to create raving fans. So again, designing critical non-essentials is really important. Joe, you had a couple of examples of this as well, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to throw in, you know, again, it's really important that you get it right, because if you're going to just start doing a standard thing, your clients are going to see it. So it really does have to come from a genuine place and something that's really appropriate for your client base. So, you know, it's lovely to receive a bottle of wine or some chocolates, but that's become the norm now, hasn't it? So it's nice to receive that, but it's not something that actually would create necessarily a raving fan. So rather than an example just now, I really want you guys to challenge yourself on the call and off the call to say, what is it that I can do over and above what I'm currently doing for my clients to feel special, important, and that really want to speak about me? And when we're looking at service-based businesses, and especially high touch service-based, that stuff is going to be about, you know, you, the business owner, and how you converse with that person, what you remember about them and their family. Yeah, the checking in point. So that real personal care piece, that is exactly the thing that a lot of high touch service-based businesses have to focus on. And going back to my earlier point, that is why culture is key. And when you're employing people, you can't just fake that stuff. So you've got to make sure that company and culture are there. And I think David's going to come onto that slide in a second.
That's a great setup for the next slide. Thank you, Joe. So, you know, when we, in a few slides before this, we talked about all companies who use this as a strategy have two things. They build great systems, but also they have a great culture. Now, you can't just add a customer culture as a veneer on top of your business. That doesn't work. The internal culture of the company has to be orientated towards loyalty as well. You can't just add it as a veneer. So it has to be a deep-rooted thing. And this is the tool we use for most companies that works the best, which is our above and below the line culture. Because really, if you think about it, culture is defined not by when things are going well, because it's easy to smile and be positive, you know, when things are going well. It's what happens when there are problems. Because a lot of these companies like Amazon, yeah, they rely on innovation. They rely on their people creating great ideas for clients, for customers. And therefore, they build a culture which doesn't have these three things below the line. They don't allow the concept of blame, because if there's been a problem or a issue with a customer, then blame kills innovation. And it basically makes the conversation go backwards rather than forward orientated and positive solution orientated. So we don't want blame in our culture at all. We want to kill blame at all. We never say who was responsible for that. We also don't want what a lot of people call reasons, but I call excuses. We don't want to go backwards and say, look, if something went wrong, okay, what were all the reasons why it went wrong? We don't want to do that. What we want to do is say, how do we fix it? We want to be forward orientated, so we don't allow excuses. And the third thing we don't want in our culture is denial. Yeah, if the experience isn't great for a customer, even though it takes some effort for us to recognize that, we want to recognize it and call a spade a spade. We don't want denial. It's either great or it's not great. So we want to get rid of those three human behaviors. We don't want blame, we don't want excuses, we don't want denial. Otherwise, we can't build a customer-oriented culture. What we want is people taking ownership for the problem. So if there's a problem, how do we fix it? I want to own it. I'll fix it. Myself, I'll fix it. We also want accountability to people to say, hey, that was probably my fault. Because as soon as somebody does that, then everybody goes away from blame, excuse, and denial, and say, okay, fantastic, let's get on with fixing the issue. So accountability is key to the culture that we need. And also responsibility, or as I often spell it, is responsibility. Because that's a recognition that all of us as human beings have the ability to respond to any situation in the way we want to. So if a customer comes to us and say, hey, I've got a problem, we can decide to be super positive about it. We don't have to exhibit blame, excuse, and denial. We just say, okay, we can be positive about that. We can be positive about anything that happened to us in life. We just have to choose to do that. And as human beings, we can. So that's the culture we have to embed in our company if we want a loyalty-based strategy to thrive in our company. And this is particularly important if you're handling problems. So when customers have problems, because obviously, if you think about it, when Amazon first launched some of their things, or Apple first launched some of their products, customers had problems, right? It wasn't perfect to start with. But you know what? If you handle a problem right with a customer, you can jump about 5 steps in one on that loyalty ladder. Because if you think about it, a customer comes to you already in an emotional state. And if you can switch that from being a negative emotional state to a positive emotional state, then you suddenly created a raving fan. So people in loyalty-based organizations, every time a customer rings or has a problem, they say, fantastic, we've got an opportunity to create a raving fan. And they do this by dealing with issues in this act, listen, offer, over, deliver method. So if a customer has a problem to us, the first thing we do is act immediately, because customers' emotion gets worse over time. So if you leave a problem to fester, it gets worse and worse and worse. So the first thing we have to do is act immediately. Second thing we have to do is really listen to understand what the customer has a problem with. Do not assume, because often customers, have a different interpretation of their experience than we have. Then offer them a solution and take ownership for making that solution happen. And the worst thing in the world, if you ring a utilities company, you get through after about 20 minutes and they say, oh, that's not my issue, I'll pass to somebody else. Then that person says, I'll pass to somebody else. And then you get cut off. Ugh, okay. And what we want to do is the first person takes the call, take ownership, sort it out. And then the magic is then over deliver on what we said we were going to do, because that really makes people smile. And then you created a raving fan. So if we can teach everyone in our organization to handle problems in this way, we're going to create a load of raving fans. So that's the cultural piece. The other thing that companies do that really max out on this strategy is they measure their success. They want to know how many raving fans they got. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want to know that? So they use something called the NPS, Net Promoter Score. So this is the answer to a question of, would you recommend us to a friend or colleague? Score us out of 10. Now, if you get scored by your customers a 9 or a 10, then you're a promoter. You're an advocate or a raving fan. If it's 7 to 8, we say that's passive. That doesn't count at all. And if you're a 1 to 6, you're a detractor. So the score is the amount of promoters you have minus the detractors. Now, customers or companies that grow really fast have net promoter score of sort of 55, 65. If you get to 70, that's amazing. Yeah, if you get north of 70, it's incredible. Okay, that's when your flywheel is really, really spinning. So if you're serious about creating a strategy based on this, put in place a net promoter score and find out how many raving fans you've got. The last point I want to make before we go into some questions, though, is that you're really only going to create a fantastic customer experience, or your team is going to create fantastic customer experience for your customers if you can create a great experience for them. Because you know what? I can't think of any examples of customers that are really, or clients that are really executing this strategy brilliantly without the owners of the business really looking after their people, really thinking how to care for the people and how to create a great positive working experience for their teams. Because that's where the energy and the emotion comes from to create these great customer experiences. So the first thing we have to think about is how to create a great experience for our employees. Now, another one of our clients, 3 Whiskey, started this strategy a couple of years ago, and their corporate strategy is very simple. They have the first strand of their strategy is to create a great place to work. And they measure that every quarter using an employee NPS. So basically they ask all their employees on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend 3 Whiskey as a great place to work? Yes or no, out of 10. And what they've done is over time is they've risen that score. It becomes a better and better place to work every quarter because we're measuring those things. The second strategy is do great work for our clients. And they measure that with a customer NPS. And the third part of their strategy is basically, we know that if we do 1 or 2, we're going to get great commercial outcomes. And we've seen that absolutely linear on a graph. The higher the employee NPS, the higher the customer NPS, and the better our sales and margins got. And 3 Whiskey have grown year on year on year through just following this very simple strategy. So it's a strategy that really builds value if you execute it beautifully. And this is a really great example of it. So I'm going to leave you with a few questions to think about. So firstly, do you want to create a business strategy for yourself, which is centered around creating raving fans? Yes or no? Secondly, if it's a yes, are you systematically and constantly improving your customer experience step by step? Do we have the customer journey mapped out on a big chart somewhere? And do we know how well we score on all the critical touch points? And do we have a plan to improve quarter on quarter some of those key touch points so that we're constantly getting better and better every quarter? And from a cultural perspective, are you and your team thinking, talking, and acting as raving fan creators in everything we do? Do we have that above the line culture in our business? And the last question to ask is, are your team raving fans of you and your company? Have we asked them? Do we know? Are we doing something every quarter to make our company a better place to work for the people who work within it? So a few questions to ponder on. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and basically ask if you guys have got any questions or points for discussion. So put under gallery view. So guys, any questions arising from what you've heard? Have we got anything in the chat box here?
David, thank you for that. It's Graham Galt here. This, I believe one of the hotel chains have got a process that every employee is empowered. I think it's Four Seasons are empowered to spend up to $2,000 to rectify any customer complaint. I mean, is that the sort of thing that you would advocate?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pret a Manger do the same, actually. Pret a Manger, the sandwich shop, they give each employee on the reception desk the authority just to give things away to their loyal customers. But Graham, they do that because they've got the confidence to do so, because they've got the internal culture.
Yeah.
They know their people are going to use that authority wisely, because that's how the whole company thinks. So nobody abuses that ever, because it's a deep-rooted culture inside the company. But if you can build that culture, and you have got that culture, absolutely let your employees do what they need to do with the customers, because then it's spontaneous and real, as Joe was talking about. Great.
It's kind of the Branson point, isn't it? If you look after your employees, they'll look after your customers.
100%, and that's 100% true.
Okay.
Any other questions from the team?
I've got one, David. When you deal with obviously CEO and people that are obviously quite busy, and you want the feedback from them, so a lot of our clients obviously they run businesses and things, and we're trying to ask them for feedback and give referrals and little quotes, but a lot of these people are so busy that it's just a full-time job trying to say, look, can you just speak to me, let me know how you get on, and when things go right, I don't think people have the urgency to come back to you. So how do you make people just come back and give you feedback?
I think there's a couple of ways to do that, Steph. One is to create events that allows that to happen. So, a lot of our clients do hospitality events for their key clients, and maybe invite them to one event a year, just so they can get them into an environment where that can happen. So that's one great mechanism. The second thing is maybe every 6 months do a business review with your client and just say, hey, I just want half an hour of your time to let you know how well we're doing, or everything you've got. Then you've created an environment where they can give you that feedback. The third tactic that works really well is the one that Philip Hefkes taught us about a few months ago, which is, I saw this and thought of you. So just send your client often just little things that keep you in contact with them, because if they think you're caring and thinking about them, they'll often respond to you and have a much better dialogue with you. And it's your responsibility to make sure that dialogue exists. So those three tactics work really well with busy people. So if you think about me, for instance, if someone sends me something nice and say, hey, David, I saw this and thought of you, I'm always going to respond to that, because someone's made a special effort to do that. Or if I'm in a hospitality event that someone's invited me to, yeah, clearly I'm going to be open with them and tell them what they think. Or if it's
sorry, David, I think Chris is going to come in too. The thing I would definitely say on this point is, when you're positioning, when we're asking that, who does it benefit? Are we positioning it to the client so that we want feedback for our business? Or are we positioning it so that we're saying, we really care, we want to do more for you, what else can we do, are you happy? And there's a real subtle difference in our positioning. If they think it's for us, can you do this survey so I can grow my business? People are not going to do it. If you do it, showing that you care about them and you want to make them happy and more successful, they're going to respond.
It's such a good point, Joe. And I think I remember this from one of our previous webinars, probably in the early days of lockdown, first time round. And the gifts that people remember are the ones that probably cost £10 or less. So it's just those little subtle things that, because they're not going to go away and talk about your product. Oh my God, he did amazing SEO today. That was absolutely fantastic. Oh, he did me a really great financial product today. They're just unlikely to go away and talk about those things. But it's those, they sent me a book in the post with a little note, I thought of you, or it was a bottle of wine or something really small, but less than £10. You know, yesterday I had a guy, Matt Rogan, founder of Two Circles, just sold his business, wrote a book. And I thought, yeah, I might purchase the book at some point because he's obviously a friend and a good guy. But yesterday he came around to my house with a book, signed copy, and said, hey, Chris, Vic, you know, I've done the book, thought I'd just drop a copy off. Thanks for all your help. What am I going to do probably tomorrow? Probably put that on LinkedIn and say, hey, Matt, great, thanks so much for dropping it off. He didn't ask me to do anything, but I was in his thought process. So it's just really subtle things that can make a difference and make people feel special. And if you can make them feel special, then they talk about it. And that's where the secret sauce is for me.
Yeah. Trust is built on the small things that you do consistently. Trust is not built on the big one-off things that we do. And if you're building trust, if you want to build a relationship with a client, a good relationship, the foundation is trust.
Sorry, David, I got a bit excited there, but you did tell me off at the start for not being too enthusiastic at the start of the session. So I got maybe a little bit overexcited on that.
Thank you.
We'll have as much as that as you got, Chris. No worries at all. Cool. Any other questions or challenges that you guys have in terms of implementing this strategy in your own businesses? Sam, how do you implement it in your business? Question to you. You're on mute, Sam.
Myself. A bit like what you've said, David. I mean, I've been at lots of big banks and institutions throughout my career and seen how they do that incredibly well and spend millions of pounds doing it. And in my own firm, I think just putting that personal touch and getting the trust of your client, right, when you're in my line of work is key. But then also having the experience to understand why a client might come to you in the first place, what their other options are apart from using you. Because if you understand what your competition's doing, right, and you just place yourself in the position of the client, you've got to go with what you want your outcome to be. You know, there'd be clients, for example, we're sort of working, so I suppose, quite high end. And there's certain clients that wouldn't come to us because, you know, they're in the market for, you know, getting something cheap. But if you're going to say you're fairly high end, your client needs to feel at the end of it that they've received a good service for that cost, so to speak. But we're constantly working on it, David, and keeping an eye on our competitors is key. And especially with technology, it's really literally, you know, evolved our industry. And, you know, we're trying to be at the forefront of that to improve that client experience, that journey, make us more efficient. And make the staff more efficient and things like that.
Great, thanks, Sam. I mean, just going back to the point that Chris and Joe are making as well, other people call it sort of random acts of kindness. It's things that people can remember and tell a story about. So if you can create something that they can tell a story about, you've really got it. So I remember Lisa, actually, I'm going to you, Lisa Armstrong here. You told me a story which I'll always remember about a client of yours that had a massive rush one weekend. I think you were short of temps to put in. And I think you and a couple of people from your office actually went down and packed a load of vegetables. I think, was it for Abel and Cole?
It was for Abel and Cole, yeah. It was a Thursday evening, yeah.
Tell me what impact that had on your relationship with Abel and Cole.
So it was in the thick of the lockdown, so everything was pretty fractured up there anyway. And with it being a food production business, of course, they'd seen increases exponentially. I think they were 300% up by the end of that particular process, and therefore the temporary need had kind of grown to the same speed. And as David just said, actually, we got to the point, it was about 2:30 in the afternoon, and we needed another 6 temps to be able to fulfill the line that night to ensure that the people at home would get their deliveries door to door the following day. And of course, a lot of those customers at the time were those that were shielding, and without that delivery coming to them, they wouldn't have had fresh fruit and veg or dry goods as well. So our only option actually was to, as a team, put our safety boots on and our high vis vest and go on up to Abel and Cole and jump on the line and help ourselves. Not only did that, of course, mean that it showed that we were a very joined up approach between us and the client. It also showed the temporary workers that were on the line that we had put in there, that we weren't afraid to kind of get our hands dirty and muck in with everybody else as well. And I think from a client's perspective, whilst we can't promise to do that all the time, otherwise I think every time we fall short by 1 or 2, we're just going to go and do it. On that particular night, it was so crucial to get those massive numbers out, that we just did whatever it was that we needed to do to help it go over the line, which it did. So,
and Lisa, credit to you on that, because if you hadn't built the culture and the trust within your team, it would have been far harder to convince those girls and guys to do it. Whereas it was just we're short of 6, let's go. And it's those moments that can really create huge success and huge rapport. Well done.
But more than that, you created a great story for the management of Abel and Cole to tell to other people, right? Because he probably remembers that. He probably remembers that night. And when he sees you, he probably recounts that story to you. And I'm sure he recounts that story to other people as well. So you created basically a raving fan and the ammunition for him to refer you to other people. You created a fantastic customer story. So sometimes you've really got to be over the top and create something that creates the story for someone to tell. Same as your story, Chris, about someone bringing around a signed book. Didn't have to do that. He could have just sent it in the post or sent it by Amazon. But he's created a story for you to tell, because you can tell the story. So I think that's what it's really about, is creating raving fans, is creating stories for people to tell.
David, one of the hotel groups that do it very well is a hotel group called the Red Carnation Group. And they own a number of hotels in the UK, in Ireland. They've got river cruises as well, and they've got a few hotels in South Africa. And their hotels are beautiful. So all of their hotels, when you go into them, they've got beautiful art and they've decorated them very well. But when you go down to the pool, they bring you free water, free ice creams, free sun cream. So they go over, over and above, creating various personalized experiences when you stay with them. So you go there not only because you really enjoy the hotel, but because of all the extra things they do for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the hotel groups are brilliant at doing that. My favorite hotel is a hotel called Blue Waters in Antigua. And it's because there's this lady who runs the beach bar down there. I can't remember. I think her name is Sheila. She's a Rastafarian lady full of beans. And the first day I got there, I was sitting on the beach and she came along the beach and just handed me a cocktail. I said, I didn't order a cocktail. She said, I know, you just looked like you needed one, and moved on. And pretty much most days she brought me a cocktail. And, we actually have spent in that hotel a lot of money over the years, and we'll probably spend a lot more money. And, that's the thing I remember. That's the story I can tell about my experience at that hotel. So she's creating every day, she's creating stories for clients, which is magical, right? I can't actually remember the last time I stepped foot inside a hotel, but hopefully soon that will be the case. Cool. Anybody?
Couple of minutes left, just a couple of minutes if there's a quick question.
One last question. Who's got a last question?
The pressure's on because I've said it's got to be quick.
Okay, hey, we'll leave it at there then. So hey, I hope you've enjoyed that. Think about it for your own business. If you can create a great strategy, it's an amazing way to drive your flywheel, and it's free. It's a damn sight cheaper than marketing, because it just keeps the customers coming back. So our next session, guys, is on Friday the 18th, where we're talking about self-mastery. And for those of you who want to do Growth Club, just let myself, Chris, or Joe know. Very welcome to bring your teams as well. We are limited in numbers, so please let us know if you want to come to Growth Club on June the 24th at Phyllis Court by the river. So that's a learning event, it's a business planning event, and it's also an opportunity to do some awards and have some drinks together on the terrace, because it's 4 days after Freedom Day. That's when we're all released. So have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Bye all.
Bye guys. Bye.
Thanks everyone.